board member of the Sterling Society.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. And Kathy's doing a light show for us. So we're so happy to have you here at our Coffee and Conversations with the Artists. Welcome and thank you for coming. This is our very first program that we started in 2007. Oh, what? You can't hear me? I'm tall and it's hard to... Okay, can I do this? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to tell you about our program. We've been doing this program since 2007, and through the years we've had 150 artists come and talk, which has been a big plus for us, and it's wonderful. And Sterling Society is just so excited that we have this opportunity to meet our artists. Okay, our sponsors this year of the Coffee and Conversations are John and Sarah Kissinger. Sarah's she was just past president of the Sterling Society. John and Sarah both have been active with the Fine Arts Center for many, many years. And they're not here today, but we thank them for their support. I'd like to mention at this time, the Sterling Society will have our membership general meeting and luncheon September 9th, so please mark your calendars. But this is for members only. So if you're not a member, I urge you to sign up and come and join the fun. We have several events through the year, and we have a really good time supporting our beautiful art center here. So please come up and consider joining the Sterling Society. Okay, now to our program. I'd like to introduce, we have three artists today. It's Sue Beach, Lorraine Potocki, and Elizabeth Ventura from the Pastel Society of Tampa Bay. And I'm going to turn this over to Elizabeth.
I'm going to give us a little light show first.
Okay.
Light show. Okay, I'm short. Let's split this. Even shorter for me. And yes, we'll move it down further. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Elizabeth Ventura, and I'm the Vice President of the Pastel Society for Tampa Bay. And I wanted to just take a minute to talk about PSTB. Because we have an interesting and close relationship with the Dunedin Fine Arts Center. The Pastel Society was founded in 2006 by a group of local Dunedin pastelists led by Brooke Allison, who came together and had a close relationship with TFAC. We have many of our meetings here, and we have, sorry, I didn't look down at my notes at the right moment. We cover Pinellas, Pasco, Hillsborough counties. So it's not just Dunedin, but it's the whole Tampa Bay area. We have about 70 members, some more active than others. We have a wonderful show at the Sterling Gallery every year. We have a wonderful plein air event that this year we had our pop-up show here at DFAC for a week. And that was just beautiful work. We have meetings here where artists talk, we've had critiques, we are here to help each other, people go out and paint together. We have a field trip coming up on May 23rd. We're going to the Delhi Museum, where one of our members happens to be a docent. So this group is very vibrant, and if you have any interest in pastel, I would urge you all to come and join us. Our email is pastelsocietyoftampabay.com. Our dues are $30 a year, and this year we'll be having 2 shows instead of 1. We'll be doing a show in September at the Carrollwood Cultural Center. So I recommend anybody who's interested in pastel to come on and join us. We have some examples over on the table near the coffee of pastels in case you've never seen them. And pastel paper, we work on sanded paper, so if you can run your hand on that, you'd like to feel it. And even if you want to just make a mark and see what it feels like. it's all right over there afterward. So at this point, let me turn this over to our wonderful Sue Beach, our headliner today. Here you go, Sue. Thanks.
Probably could use a stool. And I also promise I'm not singing another Frank Sinatra song, which is what I did to test the mic a little sooner, so you're going to be saved from that. I did jot some things down on some 4x6 cards. Right here? Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, there we go. That's me. So this was a little bit of a nod to Dunedin because this picture was taken when I was in Scotland. And I think you can see a little bit of the Scottish colors up there. I was standing next to someone that was playing a bagpipe. And so I thought, oh, I'm sorry. So this is a nod to Dunedin. I was in Scotland when this picture was taken. And so you can see the Scottish colors over there. I was standing next to someone that was playing a bagpipe. So when I had to send a photo in of myself, I thought this would be a good photo to send in. So that's why I did that one. So I did jot down some ideas here because when I speak in public, sometimes my brain gets a little squishy and I forget important details. So if you'll bear with me, I'll just share some different 5 W's of my pastel journey. Starting first with who, and I am Sue Beach, and I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, and I'm living now in Spring Hill, Florida. I was fortunate to have a career teaching art, primarily in Western New York. My first 6 years I taught at the elementary school level, and the last 27 years at the high school level. I enjoyed helping talented students create portfolios of their work and go on to study in college and also have careers in art. The high school kids were probably my favorite age to teach because they could create a more professional level of art, and so I really did enjoy working with them. It was the hardest job I ever loved, really, because it was exhausting. I had anywhere from 120 to 150 kids a day. And the last few years that I taught at the high school level, classes were getting bigger and bigger. They were getting rid of teachers. The last year I taught, I had 33 students in my class, and I only had 27 seats. And so my principal said, well, hopefully some of the students will be sick. And so, you know, we'll probably have about that many kids anyway. And that was getting close to the years where I thought it might be time to retire because I hated the thought of my students having to sprawl out on the floor when we were creating different works of art. So that was one of the things that helped to lead me to it's almost time to retire. The other thing that helped me to decide to retire was I met a wonderful guy named Ron in 2013. He worked at the University of Buffalo. He was a computer person. And he was from Rochester, not Buffalo, but raised his family and lived in Buffalo for many, many decades. And said, basically, you know, I really need to retire at 55. I hope you'll come along with me. And I love my job so much that I thought I would really teach until I was about 60 or 65. And so there was kind of a fight going on in my brain. Do I want to stay a teacher? Do I want to retire? And so it was teaching Ron. Well, Ron won out. And so when he was 55 and I was 56, we both retired. And then suddenly we realized that his daughter in Philadelphia needed some help. And she was finishing up a 5-year commitment with the Philadelphia Inner City School. She's a math teacher. So we went on our adventure to Philadelphia for a year and babysat his oldest granddaughter, JJ. And it was so serendipitous because Philadelphia, as you can imagine, is such an incredible art community as well as Buffalo was. Mallory, his daughter, lives 3 miles from the Wallingford Community Arts Center, where I got to work with master painters. One of them had even studied with Nita Engel, an incredible watercolorist, probably I would say at the same level as Andrew Wyatt. So I got to work with someone that taught me that palette. Watercolor is my first love as an artist, and so that was exciting for me to learn that you can really make beautiful watercolor paintings with just a warm and a cool version of each of the primary colors, maybe some Payne's gray, a little bit of burnt sienna, and Anita Engel, we found out, just created these incredible paintings with those few colors with a limited palette. It was also serendipitous to live in Philadelphia because we then had a golden retriever named Bella, and the only place we could find to rent an apartment was in Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania. Chadds Ford is home of the Brandywine Museum of Art, which I joined, and also the Kerner Farm, which is across the street from where Andrew Wyatt grew up. And so I got to plein air paint on the Kerner Farm with Carl Kerner III, and he was trained by Andrew Wyatt. And so also a real big fan of, I think it's Robert Enright, who speaks a lot about the Art Spirit book. And he just really lit a fire under me and said, I don't know what you're waiting for. He knew my age. He said, you're 56 years old, you should be creating a body of work. You've taught your whole life, you've never had a chance to create your own work. And I thought, it's really time for me to start that journey. So then we moved back to Buffalo and tried to do snowbirds for a few years, but that got really complicated. So we moved to Spring Hill, Florida full time in September of 2018. So I started taking classes at the Dunedin Fine Arts Center. First I took watercolor with Taylor Eichen, a couple of her Yupo painting classes. And then in February of 2019, I took a class called The Business of Art with Lorraine Potocki. And I Googled her artwork and loved her work, and especially loved her pastel paintings. And I had never done what I would call a professional pastel painting before. And I thought, oh, that looks like a lot of fun. I think I want to look into how she's doing that and if I can do that as well. So I went on to continue working with Lorraine. And so now we get to the next W, which is when. So after I took that class, I realized I'm going to just continue learning about pastels. And I went on to the Dunedin Fine Arts Center's website last night because I was curious, how many classes have I taken with Lorraine? I even said to her in class on Tuesday, has it been 4 years or 5 years? And we both said, I don't know. So it turns out I've taken 29 classes with Lorraine Potocki in pastel painting. And I've been also very lucky to take some 3-day workshops with Stan Spurlack, Nancy Nowak, and Linda Salta. I've taken 2 workshops with Sean Del Joyce, and very blessed to work with Brooke Allison in a 6-week class just before she retired. So I have totally immersed myself in all things pastel painting in terms of learning from the best of the best here at the Dunedin Fine Arts Center. Then the next W is where. All of my pastel painting classes have been at the Dunedin Fine Arts Center. In fact, I'm also taking classes here in watercolor, acrylics, colored pencil, and an oil painting workshop. Having created a large body of work and developed my art to a professional level, it was really time to create a website. So with the help of the very talented Terry Mohajeri, we decided to create a place where people could view and hopefully purchase my artwork as well. And so I thank the encouragement of so many teachers here, not just in pastels, but all of the other wonderful teachers. They've encouraged us, all of their students, to join organizations. So besides the Pastel Society of Tampa Bay, I've also joined the Florida Watercolor Society. I was a member of PAVA for a while. I'm still a member of TESSA. I've gone on to join Studio 1212. Up in Spring Hill, we have the Nature Coast Art League. So through all of those different organizations, you find a like-minded group of people that are some of the most supportive folks that I've ever met in my lifetime, because we all have the same goal. We just want to get better as artists. We just want to share what we know and help each other out too. So I'd be very, very lost without the Dunedin Fine Arts Center. I call it my art nest. And I think that if you are from out of town or out of state like I am, you move away from home, you move away from your family and your friends. And I think we all have that need to have a sense of community. And through the Dunedin Fine Arts Center, I've really found that. And I call them in class, I call them my pastelettes. But I also call them, my art people. So I'm very, very lucky. So through that, I've been showing my work. I've been entering contests. I've been winning awards. I do display my paintings at the Dunedin Fine Arts Center, the Sterling Art Gallery, studios and galleries, and other local galleries like Safety Harbor, Oldsmar, Clearwater. And so now we come to the next W, which is what? What type of subject matter do I like to create? Okay. Probably my favorite subject matter is, this is a still life painting. Probably my favorite subject matter is landscape. I just love looking at how beautiful God has created the world, and I want to share my vision of how I feel about that. But I also enjoy still life quite a bit because you get to look at things that are ordinary in kind of an extraordinary fashion. I'm also beginning to do people and creatures as well. Over here to my left is a portrait of William. He's the one with the goggles on, and that was one of my paintings that I put into the most recent Pastel Society of Tampa Bay shows, and I got to win a signature member award with that, so that was very exciting. And I'm starting to put people in my landscapes a little bit more as well. And then the next W is why. Why do I like to create with pastels? Well, I do love the buttery texture of the pastels and the way you can apply them in layers upon layers. Usually starting with hard pastels and then going to the more softer and lustrous ones. I enjoy the variety of mark making that can be created with them and the quickness of seeing such rich color. I also enjoy underpainting quite a bit when I do my work. So this painting right here is called Christmas Candy, and there's kind of a funny story behind this one. I knew there was a contest, a show I should say, coming up at the Sterling Gallery called Christmas in Dunedin, and I had said to my neighbor that I drive back and forth to classes with Mary Ellen Caesar, gee, I don't think I really have very much for that show. I might have some winter scenes that I could put in that are watercolors. And she said, well, what about your apple painting? Because it's surrounded in a box with mistletoe. And somehow I didn't quite connect that. And so I thought, well, I guess I could. But the name of the painting used to be September Splendor. So I changed, I don't know if this is legal or not, I probably shouldn't be sharing this. But I thought, well, I really could put that in the show. If there's in fact, mistletoe in the box, plus red and green, those are Christmas colors. So I did put it in the show, and it went on to win an honorable mention. So thank you to Mary Ellen for that. And so this was a real joy to paint. I think for me, it's a real joy to work on black paper. It's one of my favorite surfaces to work on because in my mind, a medium dark value has already been established. It also adds for me a sense of mystery. Where do the edges really end? We're not sure. I also enjoy leaving some of the paper as is so that I don't overtell the story. So in some of the areas you'll see on the tablecloth and also parts of the leaves, I left just to be the color of the paper so that I'm not totally filling it in. I guess I would consider myself a recovering photorealist. I'm trying really hard not to make something always look exactly 100% representational. I'm trying to get away from that. In college, at Buffalo State College, we were trained to be photorealists by many of our teachers, also at our high school. So I have that kind of brain that I'm always fighting and trying to tell a story with a little bit less detail, because I think truly less is more when it comes for me to creating my art. So I don't want to overtell the story. This was also a study in hard and soft edges. I love how most of the apples seem to disappear into the blackness of the wooden box. And this, like I said, did win an honorable mention luncheon at the Sterling Gallery. And this was also juried recently into the Philadelphia Watercolor Society's online show. And in their show, they're taking all kinds of works on paper. It doesn't have to just be watercolor. So I was very, very honored to get into that show because the Philadelphia Watercolor Society is one of the oldest in the nation and has an international membership. So I was really excited about that. The next painting is called Amici. I had an opportunity when I went to Buffalo State College to study for a semester in Siena, Italy. And so I very often name my things with Italian names. My paintings, I should say, with Italian names. This is a good example of my artistic first love of watercolor. I really enjoy underpainting with this media. For me, it sets the stage of the emotional quality of my painting. However, I love watercolor so much that I often have to remind myself to get to the pastels. Sometimes I'll be in the middle of the underpainting and it will go on a little bit too long. So I have to go a little bit more quickly with my transition into the pastels. I often like to leave the underpainting show through so that it tells part of the story as well. And the last one here is a painting called Adventure. It's a scene on our nearby Homosassa River as we were traveling on a boat towards the Wildlife State Park. We kept seeing interesting wildlife that was in every turn, curve and turn of the river, and so I decided to name it Adventure. The reason I love underpainting this one was with alcohol, was I think it sets just a kind of emotional quality to, and gives you kind of a sense of mystery about what are the colors that were underneath the actual pastels. And so, thank you very much.
This way. Hi, I'm Lorraine Potocki, and I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey, and I received my education in New Jersey, an associate's in advertising design and a bachelor's in fine arts and education. And I had all kinds of things that I did in my life, including ad agencies and a very, very long corporate career. It wasn't until my last relocation, corporate relocation, that I came to Florida and I said, oh my goodness, this is where I always wanted to live. Now I'm going to do what I always wanted to do, which is art. And I had the privilege of entering and winning some awards, and an absolute privilege and honor of being an instructor here at the Dunedin Fine Arts Center. Absolutely love it here. I've grown as an artist by teaching. I love what I do. I look back on all the years I did other things and can't imagine being anything other than an artist and in Florida. This is one of my pastels called So Much to Say. What I love most is the beach. I love Honeymoon Island especially. I love light. I love dappled light. I love shadows, the play of light in the shadows. And if you want to find me anywhere where I'm in my happy place, I'm usually walking the beach early before the crowds and trying to catch a scene that is something that people don't normally see. I usually crouch down, take photo references of the trees and everything else on the beach so that you take a look at something in a different way. You may have passed the scene before and not really seen it in the same way. So that's what I love to do. This happens to be my cat, Rocky. It's not the only reason that I painted it. I love painting animals as well. But I look for the light. Just like animals, if you have any animals at all, cats or dogs, you know how they follow the light? And when it gets too hot, they go into shade and they come out to the light again. And I loved when I took, this is up on the sofa on the throw, one of his favorite places. And I love the way the light was shining on his fur. And I start with the eyes first. Because just like with people, I think if you get the eyes and they carry you through the painting, and you keep looking at it saying, what is he trying to tell me in this? And he's trying to tell me that, leave me alone. I want to sleep. But one of the things I love to do is commissions of animals. Tarpon Springs, sponge docks. I love people doing things that, again, you would normally pass by and not think about. A lot of people can come through Tarpon Springs and look for a lot of different things. I just saw this guy, and he was harvesting the sponges, and he was working so hard, and the way the light was shining on his face, and on his arms, and on his catch of the day really intrigued me. So I took, I don't know how many photos, and came back and downloaded them on my computer, and just wanted to get what I think typified this man's journey in his life. And like Sue said, I love incorporating people into my work, and I'm doing that a lot more as well. It's just, the greatest thing is to do what you love in life, and what I love in life is being an artist. And so I'm the happiest I've ever been. So thank you very much. Introducing Elizabeth Ventura.
Hello again. This time I'll take my Pastel Society of Tampa Bay hat off and put my artist hat on. So I live, although I'm a Florida resident and live in Clearwater, I do still live 5 months of the year up in New York City, in Greenwich Village. So for me, New York City is a huge source of inspiration for me. The grit, the people, the busyness. But at heart, I am an abstract artist. I say I was suburban born and always longed for the wider world, and have traveled extensively. I've lived in Europe for a few years. I've lived in Bermuda for 7 years. And so all of that, I think, informs my work and who I am. My first teacher was my dad. He was an artist. He studied at the Art Institute of Chicago. And he was so passionate about painting from life, and painting plein air, and painting from what was real and not photographs, that we were not allowed to have coloring books as children, because we should focus on doing our own work. And so from all of this, naturally I say, well, Dad, I want to be an artist. And he says, you can be anything but. And so I went on, I did major in communications, that was kind of soft kind of stuff, but I ended up with an MBA and a CPA and a career in business on Wall Street. And as soon as my father passed away, I took my first class at the Art Students League. Despite having studied as a child at the Art Institute of Chicago for summer classes, I then took off. So I say that my art school has been self-directed, where I have, a lot of people know, drawing on the right side of the brain. Well, it turns out the woman who wrote that son lives in New York City, so I went and studied with him to learn how to draw. So that was my drawing class, and the Art Students League has figure drawing, so that was my figure drawing class. And so I sought to recreate that experience. And I still regret I never got that formal art school training, but I'm doing the best I can. So for me in painting and painting plein air, there's always, I now understand why Dad said paint from life, because there's a vibrancy and a depth and an overwhelmingness in nature that forces you as an artist to put you in the painting. Because when you are outside, it's very difficult to paint every leaf on every tree. You need to get that immediacy, and to me, that's what makes artwork exciting. That's a friend of mine's backyard. This is Clearwater Beach. The original paintings here, when you blow it up, it doesn't always work well. But this is a place I go all the time. This is by the Palm Pavilion. People think I'm crazy because you get a little sun, you get a little shade. And so then I take my little chair and I sit in the shade, and I don't look out at the ocean, I look over at the dunes. People are looking at me like I'm crazy, but that's the artist, we don't always look at what everyone else looks at. Now, this is also pastel, but this is using a different type of pastel. These are done with what we call stick pastels. This is done with another way that pastel comes in like a dish. And you can use an applicator, you can use a sponge. Okay, did I turn myself off? No? Wait, yes?
I think you're there.
We're there? Are we done? We're not done. Okay, Mary Ellen, I'm going to take your stage voice.
Okay.
And hopefully this is loud enough for everyone to hear. In any case, so this type of pastel is a different kind of application. It's thinner, and it's just another kind. So often what I will do is go out into nature now and do small studies. Here we go. One more of why it's an abstract artist with this, but I'll do tiny little studies, little small squares of impressions of nature. And then from these, I'll take these back to the studio and pick one. And then, and then do it again larger. And then from here, I may do it again even larger in either oil or acrylic. So I use the pastel medium in part of my process, but I'm now looking at working across mediums and still going back to that original painting from life, painting from nature, and then continue to translate. So I don't know if that gives you a full picture of the 5 whys, but I think you've seen now 3 artists who have very different approaches to art and painting, all using this wonderful medium of pastel. And I think it's a good time to open it up for questions. We'll go Q&A. We'll take questions, and we'll promise we'll talk loudly.
Very nice. When you see it, they can't see us up here. Let's stand.
Questions?
How old were you when you started painting?
I was in my 40s when I started painting. Yeah, it was a real strong message. Do not do this. And I always wanted to, so I had like a secret collage book. And when I traveled around the world by myself for a year, and I did this collage book. I had little scissors and some glue, and I would take my ticket stubs and I would take brochures and cut them up in collage. And I dared to put a little bit of watercolor on it, not too much. But I started creating these travel journals. And so from there, was really working out composition and some other fundamentals basic to art without doing art. Our parents are big influences on us.
Oh, we have more questions. Come on. There's a question over back there.
So continuing that, so you started late in your life doing art. How long did it take you to get to where you said, oh, that's good? Where did you feel good about what you were doing?
Does any artist ever feel We are all tortured with doubt and this, oh, is it good enough?
Fear.
So I would tell you it took 10 years. I would say by the time I was 50, I could say with a straight face, I'm an artist. I might not have felt that in my gut, but I could say that to you. So it can take a long time. I mean, I've never said I was a quick study. So
I'm going to answer that a little differently for me. I think I got to certain points where I felt like, wow, I can do this. And then I would go on and continue to study and then begin to teach. And I'd look at the work I did when I thought, wow, I can really do this, and thought, what was I thinking of? And then you go on and you keep going and going and going. Some of the pieces I did years ago, I still think are, that was really good. But I think the job of anybody, whatever, no matter what you're doing, whether you're an artist, a carpenter, a teacher, no matter what you do, you just continually get better, because it's that old adage, practice makes perfect. So I have to say, you're only as good as your next painting. So every time I started painting, I think that that's my best at where I am now. It may not be where I am in a year from now. So it's a continual growth.
Sue, how long did it take you?
Well, you know, I don't think I ever chose to be an artist. I think it chose me. It was just a natural inclination. And my grandmother and my mother always bought me art supplies. They would set up little still life arrangements in the house and really encourage that. I think they saw that talent in me. So I took classes all through school. I was always doodling in my history class, my English class, getting in trouble. I even had one teacher say, well, I hope you don't think you're going to have a career in that. So you need to stop, you know, all this doodling, all this drawing. And I went on to study art and art education. And luckily I got my first teaching job actually while I was student teaching. And so from the age of 22 until 56, I was always teaching art. The problem was, because I was so busy doing that, and I went on to have 1 and then 2 and then 3 beautiful sons, there wasn't a lot of free time for me to develop myself as an artist. So, like Carl Kerner said, I don't know what you're waiting for, but it's just really time for you to get started on your journey. So, for me, I really started, I think, becoming an artist at the age of 56. And I have a studio now at home in my lanai. I've pretty much taken over every closet and every bedroom of art supplies. There's a lot of complaining going on from Ron, and you open something and poster board or not, a gator board falls down on them or something like that, but we are collectors. So I'm just, every project I create, I just try to get a little bit better. My biggest goal in life is to be a better version of myself than I was in my last painting.
There's got to be more questions.
Well, yeah, so a question for all of you. How much do you feel your abilities and skills you have now came as a product of instruction you received from others versus you just practicing, developing it yourself?
It's a combination of both. Like Sue, I could always draw as a kid. I just could. From the time I could hold a pencil or a crayon, I knew how to draw. I can't describe it, but I knew. So then we didn't have art in my high school. It really wasn't a major in that. So I took a secretarial course thinking I'll grow up, I'll be a secretary, and that's fine. And I just kept drawing. Then when I finally studied it in school, I thought, in college, I thought, wow, this is really neat. And then as I continued my study, like everybody else has said, I studied for some amazing pastelists. But if you just learn from others and you don't practice, and you don't keep painting or drawing or whatever, you're only going to be a product of that instructor or that teacher. It's a matter of using that knowledge that you get and painting, or drawing. So it's really a combination.
So an interesting thing that I learned, Museum of Modern Art had a wonderful Georgia O'Keeffe exhibit. And at one point in her life, she said, I have now learned from so many teachers, and I want to learn to paint like myself. And so she pulled out charcoal and newsprint and spent, I think it was a full year, making hundreds of charcoal drawings, looking to find her own mark, what was uniquely her and not something from her teachers. So I think study from the best you can find and learn all the basics so that you understand value, color, texture, saturation, hue, composition, etc. But there is a moment in time where your art won't get better and your art won't be you until you spend time alone with your art, practicing, making those marks, and finding what is uniquely you. And I think that's partly why you look at all three of our art, and it's very distinct, because you're seeing that artist through it, and that's what makes art compelling and beautiful, and really that's what lights you up about it.
I just have one additional remark, and somebody else has to have a question as well. Thank you for your questions. The way I teach my class is very similar to what we're saying. We study different pastelists. Everyone is different. We study what they do, how they do, what they do with color, what they do with texture, what they do with subject matter, not to copy them, but to gain the ideas that they have gotten and how they see the world and how they storytell. So that the ambition is that when we all go to our own selves and our paintings are a product of maybe the texture this artist uses, maybe the tones this one does, maybe the color palette of this. So it becomes an amalgam of everybody that we studied from, and then you get your style and you get your look. And so I think that that's what I've done as well. Ah, yes.
My question is a little different. My question at the beginning of the opening was about, I believe Pastel Society is part of all these different counties, but not Hernando. And Susan, you're from Hernando County, Spring Hill, so am I. And I just don't know why it doesn't go past that borderline.
We're happy to go past that borderline. Everybody's welcome, and I can rewrite the website this afternoon. Put you in. That's how welcome you are.
Well, thank you. I got the chill.
Sheridan.
I know that all three of you are proficient in other mediums, but why pastel? Why is that?
For me,
Can you repeat the question?
Sheridan said all of us are proficient in other mediums. Why pastel? If I had to choose, like if I had to say, you have to choose a major in art, what would it be? For me, it would be pastel, because pastel really is a combination of everything. You've heard the term underpainting. Does anybody know? Who doesn't know what underpainting means? It's okay, you can raise your hand. Okay, so with pastel, you can either apply the pastel directly to the pastel paper. We have a piece of paper there that you can see. It's a sanded paper. Or you can underpaint. You can underpaint by taking acrylic paint, and you can block in, paint in the shapes and the values as an underpainting. You can use watercolor. You can use something called art graph. You could even use oil, but oil takes a long time to dry, so probably not that. So you do the underpainting, and you've got your backbone of your pastel. And then you take your pastel and apply it as the final on your painting. So because pastel for me is kind of an amalgam of all of that, I love it, but I also love the immediacy of it. I love the feel of pastel. I love the paintbrush, and I paint acrylic as well. There's something to me about holding on to that pastel and how buttery and rich it is and how beautiful the color is, that for me, it's just, it's hard to describe. I just absolutely love it. You had a follow-up question?
Yeah, when you're doing your underpainting, are you using the pastel paper for your underpainting, or are you
Yes, it's right on, exactly. It's right on the pastel paper. When you're doing the underpainting, the question was, do you do it right on the pastel paper? Yes. Normally do a sketch, a light sketch of your subject, and then block in with whether it's acrylic or, you can also use pastel with 70% alcohol on it. So because pastel really is paint in solid form. If you take pastel on a piece of paper and you either wet it with water, which I would not recommend, but if you wet it with paint over it with 70% alcohol, it reduces it to its natural state, which is paint. It's just hard paint.
Yes, for me, it gives me the opportunity to combine two things, which is my love for drawing and my love for painting. And so in the painting on the far right, which is called Primavera, which in Italian means spring, I had visited Savannah and saw in Forsyth Park that beautiful white fountain. And it was springtime, so the trees were magenta and light pink and orange, and my first reaction was that just has to be a burst of color. So I used watercolor ink and just kind of put magenta everywhere as the underpainting.
purposely leaving some areas to stay white because in watercolor, the white is the very most important area. It's like real estate. It's the most expensive real estate in your painting. You have to keep some areas to stay white. So I use that same mentality when I paint, or underpaint I should say, with watercolor ink to create a pastel painting. And then I went ahead and I put on different layers of color. And what Lorraine said is exactly how I feel. There's something about holding this pastel, especially the ones made by Carl Kelly at Mount Vision Pastels. They feel like a piece of butter, and they just go on in such a rich fashion, and you can layer them, and then they create new colors. And to me, it's just a very, very exciting thing to work on. A little side note, that pastel painting on the far right was in a show, and Brooke Allison was talking to me about it, and she said, come over here and tell me something about this painting, in kind of a stern voice. And I said, oh no, Brooke doesn't like what I made. I have such high regard for her. She said, who told you to leave all these white spaces, all these spaces in paper? And I said, nobody, I like that, because as a watercolorist, I like leaving some of the paper to stay the color it is. She goes, good for you. She said, you keep doing that, because I've never seen that before. And I was like, oh my God, I can die now. Brooke Allison likes something I made. So it's just a beautiful way to combine painting and drawing for me.
2 words: immediate gratification.
That's true.
Pastel is immediate. You put that mark on, the mark's on. You don't like it, you can take it off. You can put it back on again. But you don't wait for it to dry. You don't wonder what's going to happen. You don't see it drip. It doesn't run. So there is an immediacy to what happens with pastel that makes it a very exciting, frustrating, yummy.
And the value will change. With watercolor, the value will change. With acrylic and oil, the value can change, especially watercolor. It will dry a lot lighter. So what I love about pastel is if you put it on and it looks nice and bright, it's going to be that bright tomorrow when you go back.
And I just want to add one thing. A lot of people say, oh, you use chalk. There's a difference between chalk and pastel. Pastel is pigment. It's just pigment, and there is a binding agent put in it. It's rolled out like cigars. It's cut and dried in the sun. So it's really pigment. Chalk is not pigment. So when you say it's chalk is what they use on tennis courts, chalk is what they use for chalk painting. So if you take nothing from what we said, you can feel like, I know pastels are pigment. Any other questions? Yes?
Does it have to be a question, or could I encourage people?
You can say whatever you'd like. You have the floor.
I'm entering in my 79th, going into the 80th year. I started in my 50s. My mother was an artist. And this is regarding confidence. When I took art lessons and lived at Art Gallery in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, then you get married, have children, work, need to make money.
Yes.
When I was taking some lessons from Paul Farrell, who was Tarpon Springs, an architect looked at our artwork and we were critiquing, and he said about mine, "Ugh, your art leaves me cold." I went home and I cried and I said, I'm never picking up a brush again. How could you ever think you're an artist? My voice in the brain whispered. When did I become an artist? I don't know. As a child, I think. Until I sold for $880 at Marie Botanical Selby Garden a beautiful triptych who's in Atlanta, Georgia, Peachtree. I said to the architect, screw you.
Yes, Ariella.
Would you talk a little bit about the importance of critique?
Good question. It really is a good question. At the end of each of my classes, almost everyone, we do a critique critique can sound like, I know I went to Catholic school, grammar school and high school. Critique was bad news. You were going to be humiliated in front of your classmates, at least where I was. Critique is really necessary to give positive feedback of, the way I put it, what's working. If this were your painting, what would you do next? And it's really good to be able to get a critique of your work through someone else's eyes. You may not be seeing something that, oh, I didn't really realize that I needed some red there or whatever. And it's beneficial not only for yourself, but it's beneficial for others because they're listening to the critique and saying, I didn't know that either. So critique is really, really important, and I think we just talked about this in my class. Even if you ask someone who doesn't have formal training in art, if you just say, what does this painting mean to you? What is it saying to you? How do you feel about this? You'd be surprised. It can be from children, it can be from someone you love, it can be from a neighbor, but it's really nice to get input to see what kind of reaction people are getting to your work. I find it very, very important.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll add one quick thing about critique. I had said before that all of us as artists, we're crippled with self-doubt and are we good enough? And I do think learning to critique well allows you to step out, and when you say to yourself, oh, it's terrible, to ask yourself, well, why is it terrible? What is making it terrible? And to get out of that little nasty judgment voice that sits on your shoulder, and then kind of put the professor hat on and say, oh, well, I think it's terrible because the tree is leaning way too far. Maybe it needs to come up more, or everything's the same value, or you learn questions to ask so that you get out of the judgment mode and into the questioning mode. And to me, that is the single biggest step out of that terrible spiral down and getting into learning how to critique your own work and move forward and get better.
We have one more question, Cindy?
Shameless plug. If anyone is not lucky enough to be in one of Lorraine's classes and have this ability to have critique, Studio 1212 offers 2 free critiques. They're open to the community every month. You're welcome to come by and bring a piece of art that you're finished with or that you're not finished with and have a critique, then participate if you want your input for our critiques as well. So feel free.
So that's Cindy, and if you do want to participate, Cindy, you're going to stick around for a little bit for coffee. Go see Cindy if you'd like to participate in the Studio 1212 critiques.